Hello, I'm Arusa, and I'll be reviewing Kit Fan's poetry collection, The Inkcloud Reader. Kit Fan arrived in York, England from Hong Kong at the age of 21 and has done a plethora of work, which has won awards, including short stories, poetry, and translation. This collection, as many have mentioned, utilises form brilliantly. There's a poem that's a play, has disappearing text, rests in the moon, and there are lovely visual ways in which the poetry is performed here. I'm Arusa Malik, and I'll be reviewing the shortlisted poem The Inkcloud Reader by Kit Fan. The collection has 38 poems, 36 of which are titled into 3 sections. The first being Once Upon a Cloud, the second being Hong Kong, China, and the third being Broken Nose Jizo. The other 2 poems kind of envelop these 3 sections. So the first one's like Cumulonimbus, and the last one being Hokkaido. And I enjoy how Kit Fan's kind of structured it in a way which we begin like right up in the clouds, even this technical name of a cloud where, maybe countries and people and things don't exist except for nature sometimes. And then the last poem being Hokkaido, which is where culture and people firmly exist. And yet Kit Fan kind of brings our attention to how these things, will like interact, and how, bring the clouds down right to us, and how Hokkaido can potentially be right up in the clouds and mingle. The 2 poems I'll be speaking about are Gluck, which comes from the first section, Once Upon a Cloud, and I'll be talking about Mother's Ink, which comes from Hong Kong, China. I had an instinct towards Gluck because it's a poem that looks exactly like a play, if it isn't a play. The poem instructs us that the characters are Sun, Shade, You, Sick Man, Another Man, and Book. The characters of Sun and Shade are like primarily, if not completely speaking, in the play, kind of arguing over should they swallow the sick man, kind of acting as these metaphors for metaphorical death almost, with Sun being more aggressive and outright swallowing a man as within the play, and Shade a bit more cautious and a bit more unsure, especially when they mention that the sick man is reading Gluck. And both the poem and the verb seem to denote some danger to Shade, but not to Sun, not quite. I really enjoy how Kit Fan quite effectively has brought the poem into the play, or the play into the poem, whichever was first. As a playwright myself, I was like immediately drawn to this poem. It's really densely written. I think the way that sometimes poems are, it's not kind of, the context is kind of elucidated to be at a Malton Community Hospital. But yeah, this was a really interesting poem that kind of caught my eye. The other poem, Mother's Ink, has a similarly omniscient tone with the first line, born I was and wasn't. Ink is like a primary kind of feature here. It's what the newborn, and there's a newborn and a mother, it's what the newborn feeds on instead of milk per se. There are some really interesting lines of, she knew I wanted ink greedily, she fed it to me, dark, diluted with water, that when it touched a page, spread. It seems to be like that the mother is both feeding and bathing a baby in ink, and this ink is full of has like a clotted, dense feel of being food, and yet it seems to be leaching the source of food. It kind of makes me think of the quote right at the beginning of denoting how before there was ink, there was this idea of reproduction, something that kind of runs right through all the poems. But yeah,